All right. Hello, everybody. If you are here, I am just waiting for Instagram. No, Instagram. Don't tell me that there's a problem loading. Here we go. I see us. So that's a start. All right. Good, good. I think we are good in all the things. Hello, everybody. Jen Sengi here, Stardust Wanderer Tarot, and we have Estrella. I told you I was going to do it. Astrea Taylor. That's totally my fault, guys. I legit just jinxed myself. I said I'm going to just mess up everything. Here I am doing everything messing up.
We
But
got that
anyway,
out of the way, right?
I did it. I totally did it to myself. I did it. But anywho, Astrea, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been in the pagan witching community for over 2 decades now, and I was taught by Wiccans experientially, and I kind of just made my own path up by using things that felt right to me because I didn't have the books. And so I based my book, Intuitive Witchcraft, on a lot of that stuff. Not necessarily the Wiccan aspects, but the
Mm-hmm.
intuition, the feeling what's right, feeling confident about how you interpret things. And so it's important for me to kind of get that message out there, I felt like, because I was hearing a lot of other things being said. And that was my first book with Llewellyn. That was in 2020. And now I have a fourth book out with Llewellyn.
I know, that's so amazing. Yay!
Yeah, thank you. It
Woohoo!
sounds like a short amount of time, but there's a lag in writing books and like getting it out there. So I think I contracted the first book in 2018 or so.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something too that people don't realize, that it's not like you have this totally completed book is beautifully edited, ready to go. It's a process.
Yeah, definitely.
It is a process. I actually just handed in my book to Heather. So I'm just like, and it's been, 8 or 9 months that I've got it all situated, but now it's like just starting. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I've read it a million times and gone over it and edited and all the things, but I just handed it to Llewellyn, so I'm just starting that process.
Yeah, that's where the fun begins
Oh
too,
yeah,
with the
no, I look
editing.
forward. Yeah, I look forward to getting that first edit back of my first book, and it's gonna be very colorful, I'm sure.
Yeah, it always is. And you
Yeah.
always find this sentence where you're like, "What did I mean by that?" And they're like, "I don't know what you meant by this." And you're like, "I don't know either." It's like,
Right.
where
I'm
did it come
already
from?
doing that. I already read it. I read it over and I'm like, where was I going with that?
But
Okay.
that's why we edit. That's the magic of editing,
Yes.
because there's the creation mind and then there's the editing mind, and I think they're
Yes.
both different, but they talk to one another.
They do. They're friends most of the time, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
I really hope so. I really try to
Yes.
make them friends.
We try anyway. But your newest book is Inspiring Creativity.
Mhm.
Woo! And I love the color. I love the cover. It's so
Yeah, thank
pretty.
you. I know, I love the rainbow on it. It's like, it's almost
Yes.
close enough to Pride Month. I was like, "It's pretty much Pride Month." It's
It
July. It was
is.
published
It
July.
works. It
Yeah.
absolutely, and I love that, even like the instruments that they use on here. You got like a wand and you got a paintbrush and you got a calligraphy pen and everything. Like it's so cool to see that. And what has Ben saying? It's amazing how many things writing start at 1 a.m. and then both you and your editor. Yeah.
Oh, I
Really?
know.
No, because it's like, seriously, like, who wrote this?
Yes.
Like, because I
Yeah.
don't even, like, I don't know what this means, but it must have meant something at that time.
Yeah, sometimes the ideas are all loosey-goosey, and
Yeah.
especially, like, 1 AM or when you're, like, in bed and you're like, "Oh, I have an idea," you write it down, and it's like a dream, and you're like, I forgot the dream."
Exactly, exactly. I know, and it's like you do, and it's like my notes app. Like if anybody ever accessed that and looked at it, they would probably be like not talking to me anymore, because there's some really weird stuff that I write down in there.
Or maybe I'd be obsessed with it, I don't know, right?
I know. Okay, let's go with that. You'd
Okay,
be obsessed with it. I like that. I like
yeah.
that. So, why don't you tell me what inspired you to start this book?
Well, I had been working with a muse or a creative spirit for many years, and it helped me write my first fiction book. my first finished work of fiction,
Mhm.
and then I wrote another fiction book, and then I wrote the Llewellyn book, Intuitive Witchcraft, and then after that, two more, and I realized that this is a magical process, and I
Mhm.
had these correspondences for my creativity, which were a cauldron of tea,
Yeah.
a candle which mirrored my energy. I
Mhm.
listened to music, and I had incense, and I also had soda light. Every single time I was writing, that's what I had. And I realized those are my creativity correspondences.
Mhm.
And I realized I had one of each of the elements, at least one. And so I was like, I should write a book about this. It's basically how I learned how to hyper focus and really to get into the flow of my creative project and to find the magic that there was there, my vision, and then to bring it, ground it, bring it to life and bring it into the world.
Right. No, and I love that. And I love the fact too, that you are relating this to kind of everything. And obviously you're an author, so writing is your art.
Mhm.
But it can kind of go across the board. And I also feel that some people just relate it to art itself and don't realize that you can pull this other stuff into your writing and music, dancing, any of those.
Mhm.
So can for people who aren't really familiar, could you just kind of talk about what a creative muse is?
Yeah, sure. So these are spirits that have been known to people since in the Western civilization world, since before there was a recorded, document about them. And some of the first documents that came online in ancient Greece were, Homer and Hesiod, and they both, uh, before they started any part of their story or their chapters or their verses, they celebrated the muse, the creative spirit. I use the term creative spirit in the book because it's generic, it transcends time and culture, and it could be more relatable, I hope. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like anyone can use whatever they want because I feel like the muses are still here and they still do inspire.
Mhm.
And these creative spirits give artists, writers, poets, musicians, all kinds of artists inspiration. They give them the energy, the ideas, they give them the notes or the words. And the more I looked into this topic, the more I realized that some modern people were using the term muse or creative spirit or something else that meant that kind of external energy that was giving them, their art, however that showed up for them. Like
Mhm.
Stephen King, the prolific horror writer Stephen King talks about his muse. Tori Amos talks about channeling her muses. Like
Yeah.
it's still happening now in the world. It's alive and well, this kind of concept. And I realized nobody was writing about it.
Right, right,
And
right.
yeah, there are a lot of books on art magic and creativity and magic. And the closest ones that this comes to, I would say, is like Big Magic or The Artist's Way.
Mhm.
Big Magic by Liz Gilbert and The Artist's Way by what's her name? Cameron, Julia Cameron,
Yeah.
because they talk about this kind of experience and how it is kind of spooky and otherworldly. And I was like, this is like paganism, witchcraft 101. Like, let's
Right,
talk about
exactly.
this.
It's like, come on now. No, and I think it's important too that everybody can do it. You don't need to be Stephen King. You don't need to
Mhm,
be like these big, super famous authors or creators to do this. You can, anybody can do it. And I like that you use creative spirit too, because it is very open and it kind of allows that person to create and channel and call in, that muse that is the best for them. And because I do, I think sometimes even just using the word muse, some people are like, oh, well, does it need to be like a Greek god or something like that,
mhm.
and so kind of breaking it down that way does make it more doable. And I really did like that. And I really liked in your book too that everything that you did, the exercises and all that stuff, it wasn't anything complicated. Like you don't need to go out and buy all this stuff and do all these things. Like
Mhm,
a lot of the stuff you have kind of right in your house too, right?
mhm. Yeah, Ben mentioned Alwyn, and yes, I have a little bit about that too. And I think that the Celts and the Druids, they had their own ideas about that and the inspirational force. Yes, I think that's perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, no,
Just
I love that. I love
different
that. So,
interpretations. Yeah.
yeah, so what is your favorite drink of choice? And like, what is your candle? What is your incense? Like, what
Mhm.
works for you?
Okay. So I think
Well,
it's
at this
important.
time, I know it
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, so when I'm writing magical books, I like to have like a magical vessel so it
Mhm.
doesn't distract me. The most magical beverages I drink are coffee in the morning, daytime, and then hibiscus tea in the evening. For some reason, they both just really stimulate me. Well, I know there's caffeine in coffee, but the
Well,
hibiscus,
yeah, but yeah, yeah.
something
I mean,
about
it's
that.
magic. They're magic
Yeah.
beans.
Yes.
Come on.
And so I use a blue candle. I use very immersive music that kind of puts me in a trance.
Mhm.
And that's helpful for, it's not distracting to me. It helps me find the right tone. But, I say that someone who's a sculptor or a painter might like to listen to a podcast instead. And then that's how they can like send their mind over there and let their energy kind of be focused on something else. Because
Right.
there's some kind of like chatter the mind just likes. And then, yeah, sodalite is my earth sign element of choice.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good one. And, I think too that for people too that if like incense doesn't work for them, you can always use a diffuser. Essential oils work just as well.
Yes.
Definitely just as well. Just to say, because I know I always get somebody's like, I can't do so. I'm like, no, 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 no. There's things to do. Don't worry.
Yeah. And
Don't worry.
I love using frankincense for
Yes,
that. Like
I do
it's
too. I don't
something
know what it
funky.
is. Like frankincense in the diffuser is like really good.
Yeah.
Like, it smells really nice. Like, I definitely use that one too. So, you talk a little bit too about I have your book here, that's why I'm looking.
Mhm.
I have, like, all my notes, so I'm trying to
I
I,
love
like, go
notes.
through and I'm, like, sticking my little and I have all these bookmarks, but I always go to my little pieces of paper, It's just how
Yes.
it works for me. It's just
Wonderful.
fine. It's fine. So, I know you talked too about, using dream work for creativity too. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that we can ask our creative muse to help us get breakthroughs or to get visions of our art in our dreams, get inspiration, ideas. And one particularly memorable time I had with my creative spirit was that I had been calling him something for a long time. I call him Crow because he looks like a crow for the most
Okay.
part. But then I knew that wasn't his real name. And I was like, okay, I want to learn your name. And over about a week, he came to me and he told me his real name, which I keep secret, but
Yeah.
it was really special to me and like a really bonding moment because we had been working together for years. We had established this trust. But it had just occurred to me at that time, like, I got to get to know this creative spirit a little bit better. And it
Right.
was really wonderful because I can't really see him directly in real life. I kind of see him just out of the periphery of my vision, but
Yeah.
dream, it was just head on. So I think that kind of stuff is interesting too. And there are people who talk about, those experiences, how their muse doesn't like to be looked at
Mhm.
directly too. Like Stephen King said that too. Uh, and I just find this fascinating. Like putting
Yeah.
this book together was a labor of love for me for the creative spirit, not just my creative spirit, but for
Mhm.
the creative spirits in general.
Right, right. No, and it is. I think it is really interesting how, a lot of them don't want to be looked at, but
Yeah.
in like the dream world, then it's kind of okay to do that. And I wonder why that is, like why that changes. And it's one of those things like I'm thinking about and I never seem to ask that question because I do a lot of dream work and I never thought to ask that. So I might have to do that now. I'm very curious.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody is writing, doing art, whatever it is that they're creating, how would they know that they have a creative spirit?
Well, I think that it's a matter of interpretation because some people interpret it as their higher selves. Some people interpret it as an external energy, a spirit. I think all of these are valid. And they could all be the same, but just different interpretations. But I
Mhm.
think the primary way that somebody could identify that a creative spirit is working with them is if you're sensitive to spirits and you sense another spirit in the room with you, especially if you have a protected place where you do your art,
Right.
um, and that they're a safe spirit and they're not, telling you lies or telling you that they want you to do something bad or not telling you some bad things about yourself or
Mhm.
extremely good things about yourself. And
Right.
then, so they feel like a safe spirit. And in my experience, the creative spirit didn't want anything from me except for me to continue to create. I tried to give this spirit offerings, like all different kinds of offerings.
Right.
And I was like, I don't care. No thanks. I'm not touching that. You get to work. And
Just
so
right.
when he was there, and I just felt like this inspiration, like this trickling feeling, like this caressing feeling on my head. And
Yeah.
that's when like the ideas started really coming. Like I
Oh,
thought I was in the flow before he showed up,
yeah.
but I have to say that when he shows up, it turns on like a hundredfold. It's amazing. And to be really in the flow that much, it really does feel like we're working with some occult entities, some otherworldly entities, because it's like a superpower for that short amount of time.
Right. No, and I love that too. And I think, if people, if they really are interested in working with their creative spirit, now, number one, read your book, because you also have a lot of exercises too, to kind of introduce yourself to them, like know that they're there, and just the mindfulness and taking
Mhm.
that time. And in some of your exercises too, it really is like they're like mindfulness exercises. They're like bringing you into the moment and like recognizing what else is going on, and then just being able to tell, like when you, like you said, you get that download of like, whoa, like here I
Mhm.
go, like what was going on then, how are you feeling, what was happening, all those things, right? Like I think we need to pay attention to that, because we get so hyper focused on what we need to do that sometimes we don't pay attention to what's going on around us. And I love that in your book, it's really just bringing your awareness to the whole area, not just whatever the project that you're focusing on.
Yeah, and I feel like the art has its own idea about what it is too. The art's like, I know that you want to take this in this direction, but like when writers say like their characters come alive on the page and they're like,
Yeah.
I didn't really anticipate these two characters hooking up. They really wanted to or something.
Right, right, right.
And they just get surprised by what their art wants for itself. And so I think that's, something that you can verify that yes, the creative spirit is coming through with that. The spirit of the art is alive and awake and it's kind of making itself known. It's like saying, "Hey, I have an idea. It's probably better than yours. Like, why don't you look into this?"
Right.
And it's just, you're right. We do have to get out of like the linear way of working because the energy with this stuff isn't really linear. It's really
Right.
just 4 dimensions. I would say it's not even 3 dimensions or 2 dimensions.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think too is really just kind of recognizing your ego, right?
Yeah,
And kind of checking that, because like you
yeah.
said, like your creative spirit might be like really trying to like channel a great idea to you, and you're like, "No, I already know what I'm doing." And you're going to totally miss out. Like there goes your bestseller because you weren't listening.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
agreed.
Right? And you do talk about channeling in your book as well. Can you just talk about that a little bit, what it is, just for people who haven't really touched on that yet?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is a very common way of thinking about spirits and us. And the term possession is really common around the United States where we live, but I don't know if it's the best term for this. So put that on the shelf. Channeling is more like being influenced by a deity or a spirit that is safe, of course. You verified as safe, after building a trust with them.
Right.
And then interacting with them like in your mind, in your spirit, in your body a little bit more, and just kind of relinquishing some of the control because you have built that up. And there are different degrees of channeling. I think as a writer, I probably am about at like 50-50. I'm
Mm.
it's helping me find the words. It's all flavored with my, flair and style and everything.
Right.
But I'm also a fire dancer, and so when that when I work with spirits with that or deity with that, it's more like 95% spirit and only 5% me. And you're right, like what you said about the ego is the ego really does have to get out of the way, especially for that kind of performance,
Right.
because anyone who can see the ego of a person who's performing, it's not attractive at all.
Right.
And
No, it's
a performer should be like filled with spirit so much that they kind of overflow and it goes into the audience, it inspires the audience.
right.
And, if you see someone, you're like, "Oh, I'm just going to keep walking." They are just displaying their ego and they probably don't have the right intentions, or maybe they're newer. And that's okay. We all have a learning curve. I don't want to judge anyone or to make anyone
Right.
feel bad.
Right. No, it is true. But I think too, as magical people, like when you come across these things, you kind of can tell right away.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously you can't be like, oh, hey, can you stop what you're doing? Like, you need to just like put your ego down for a minute. I mean, probably that'd be frowned upon, and then we'd really have no friends. So, but I think too that it's something that even if you do come across that or you notice that in somebody else, kind of take that as a lesson for yourself. And what can I learn from this? What can I, instead of even just placing judgment on them, you can notice it, not just
Mhm.
judgmental, but be like, okay, I see how they are doing it this way with their craft. What can I do with mine in a different way that it's not like channeling that energy? So I think
Yeah.
it's all like we just gotta learn. We just gotta.
And you were talking about shadow work recently too, about
Mhm.
how you have to keep doing it. You do really have to embrace the
All the
shadow
time.
like, on a regular basis, and someone who
Yeah.
doesn't, you can kind of see that and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yep.
And I don't know, sometimes I think they would have insights that are valuable to some people at a certain level, but, other levels just, it doesn't apply, and which
Right.
is the diversity of the human experience, I guess, as well.
No, it is. It is. And I think that also knowing that we're always growing and evolving is important. And that,
Mhm.
that probably, and that kind of relates to even with the creative spirits that you work with. Because, like, if there could be one that you work with on maybe your last book, and then you start a new one, and then that one, like, that energy is just different. So you may get a new one, and that's okay. Like, a new one may show
Mhm.
up, right? Like, that's okay
Mhm.
if that happens.
Yeah, especially with different formats of art. I feel like, I usually work with deities for dance and the creative spirit for writing more often. But I see the deities that I work with in dance as creative spirits, so there's a little bit of a blurred line there, but it is a little bit different. I just need different ways, different inspiration, different ways to express that energy too.
Right. Yeah. No, and that makes sense too. Because I do feel, and the reason I mentioned it is I feel sometimes when people are working, even that when they're working with different gods and goddesses or deities or whatever, they get stuck on like,
Yeah.
I work with Hecate and that's it. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
they're like, well, when I'm gonna write or do whatever my project is, Hecate is coming through and that's
Right.
it. And you limit yourself by doing that. And I think it's important, to know that, different things may call for different types of creative spirits, and that's okay. If Hecate doesn't
Mhm.
come through for that, maybe she wasn't meant for that job. It's totally fine. Doesn't mean that she's abandoning you and she's going to be gone forever.
Yeah.
But, it definitely is, kind of one of those things like it's like those simple little things sometimes I think people get overwhelmed with and then
Mhm.
can't do anything, or oh, I can't even do that. And I really like that in your book too. It's you really break it down and you make it so doable and easy and not like scary, because sometimes
Yeah.
like you said, you hear the word possession and the movies and social media
Mhm. Yeah.
made all of these words so freaking scary, even witch, even
Fear-based, yeah.
everything. And everybody's like, oh my God, I can't do that. And it's really comes down to what makes you comfortable. And I say give it a shot. Why not? Because you never know what's going to happen. And if you don't like it, you don't do it. Right.
Yeah, yeah, I and, like, it just struck me, like, the fear-based occultism, like, probably
Mm.
emerged from the Satanic Panic, the witch
Yeah.
trials, things like that, but, like, love-based or trust-based occultism is so much, more better, it's so much, it feels so much better, but, establishing the love and the trust in the first place is very important, and
Yeah.
circling back to what you said, sometimes I think that, deities like Hecate could send another deity or another spirit to, one of her devotees,
Right.
and for those people to see the signs and to feel the interaction, but to deny that would be a denial of Hecate herself, so I think you have to be open to that interpretation too.
Yes. No, it's so true. It's just like don't be so stuck on one thing or what you think because that's again that's your ego talking right there. And
Mhm,
if I feel like that like if you're going into a project and you're really stuck on that, you might run into creative blocks, which is another thing that you talk about in your book.
mhm.
So, can you just kind of give everybody just some tips on how to get past a block?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like creative blocks can arise in a lot of different ways, but there are many great solutions. The first thing that I always do whenever I feel blocked is I take care of myself. I rest. I eat some good food. I see some good friends. I take a shower. That's so important, and that's where a lot of inspiration, like eureka moments, can hit us. Because when we're in our like the trance mindset, like when we're driving or about to go to sleep, those times can be really like beautifully liminal, and we can receive messages at that time that can help us break that. But
Hmm.
also like spending time in nature, taking a walk, getting some exercise, and talking about it with another artist, preferably someone who works in your medium, but they
Yeah.
don't even have to. I can't tell you how many times like I brought this problem to my husband, who's a musician, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this plot point, and he was like, why don't you just do this instead? And it takes somebody who's outside of your mental box, to really help you think outside of the problem.
Right.
So, yeah, there is a whole list of, things you can do, and some of them are much more magical than that, but those are the ones that came to mind to me just now.
No, then somebody out there definitely needed to hear that for sure. And
Mhm,
I do that too, like with my husband too, because I'll be writing about whatever. And again, it's probably something magical, but I get stuck on it. And like I'm like, where, and I'll say, and he'll be like, well, just do this and this. And I'm just like, whatever. I would have thought of that.
mhm, yeah,
But it
eventually.
is. But it is like sometimes you do have to kind of take it outside of the box and I think that that is also something that is important too. It's kind of having a creative um support system
Mhm,
that are human, people, not always, you have your spirit team, but it's also good to have the human team as well.
mhm.
And what advice do you have for people who possibly want to join a group that maybe a writing group or an art group or a performing group or something like that? Like what advice do you have for them regarding that?
I have, I've been part of a lot of different groups, and I love it. I'm I'm a little bit more of an extrovert than an introvert, I
Mhm.
found out.
Yeah.
And so
Same,
I
same.
really I really love, like, talking to people, like, "What are your goals?" And, like, "Here's my goal. I'm gonna write
Right.
1,500 words today," or whatever. "I'm gonna write this chapter." And, supporting people in their goals is so amazing. So you do have to find supportive people, who are willing to show up and also, hold space for your goals and you hold space for their goals.
Right.
But then also, I really like having time with other artists. So my best friend and I had this thing where we would have art nights where I would write and she would paint, and we
Yeah.
would either do it together or over a Zoom call, especially over the pandemic.
Right.
And it was our time to be together and then also just create and make progress with that. So it was like hanging out, but also kind of with a respectful distance. And we would take breaks together like once an hour or so.
Oh, I love
She'd be like, "What do you think of this color?" And I'd be like, "What do you think of this sentence?" So,
yeah.
yeah, and it's magical to get feedback that quickly too.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think too, just even in the silence of, two people working,
Mhm.
together but separate, because there's
Mhm.
that, again, that's like kind of compounding and doubling that creative energy too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an awesome thing. And I love that idea. Like I really do like that. There is definitely something to that. And I think too, again, it's, it may not be for everyone, people who are a little more introverted or who are a little more, nervous about sharing things, and that, I think it's too,
Yeah.
you don't feel like that, like keep searching because you just haven't found those people yet.
Yeah, and another
Yeah.
way, you can be part of, like, something if you are more introverted is, like, my husband and I, we both are like, "Okay, let's do our thing, we're gonna create." He goes to the basement to do music, I go to write, and, we go as long as we can, and then we break and have meals together. We watch
Yeah.
television together to unwind or something, and it's a really good way to support each other, to hold each other accountable for our goals, and then to enjoy relaxing together as well.
Right. No, that's super important. And actually my husband and I will do that, kind of like he's going and doing his thing, and then it's like, okay, are you done? Are you done? Okay, let's go do something, too.
Yeah.
And just, and stepping away from it sometimes too, I think when you are kind of feeling blocked is really important. And just
Yeah.
go outside. Like for me, everybody's got problems. I'm like, just go outside.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's never a wrong answer, right? I
Yeah.
mean, unless there's like, rain and tornadoes and whatever, then
Mhm.
probably you don't want to. But for the most part, like that's always a great thing to do. And for me, I'm very much like I kind of do like the half hour work, and then I take like that 5 minute break. Like I have to get up and move around, and
Mhm.
then I sit come back down. And like for me, if I sometimes I'll super get into the flow, and then it'll be a little bit longer than that. But like for me, it's important. Like I have to get up, I have to do something and move around and get a drink or whatever, and then sit down and keep going. And not everybody's like that. Some people just sit and slam the whole thing out, which I'm
Mhm.
kind of jealous about. I don't know if I can do that, but if they, I'm just almost like, how? But I don't know. Maybe my creative spirit is just needs breaks like I do. That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, it's good to get up and wiggle and walk around and stuff. Bathroom break,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it is. I think it is,
Yeah.
right? It's important.
And whatever works for you too. I think that's, the
Yes.
important element is, if it feeds you to stretch out long times and do that, or, if you can only do it for 10 minutes at a time and then come back, that's fine too.
Right. And just like, I think, again, just trying a little bit of everything and see what works. So that's what's great. Like in your book, you have so many different things to try. And I
Mhm.
love that because, like, seriously, if you just go through this, try that, by the time you're done, you're going to like have your creative self pretty much figured out. So that is awesome, especially for people who are just starting or are overwhelmed with wanting to add magic into their creativity too.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. Like, I really try to put so much love and helpful hints in there, because I have been through so many of those problems.
Right,
Really,
right,
really
exactly.
help me.
Like, we're doing all this stuff so you don't have to. So you just buy a
Yeah.
book, you're good, done. It's done. I'm just looking here at my notes here too. Um, so, and I know in the beginning too, we were talking a little bit about, kind of like the editing brain and the creative brain, and,
Mhm.
making sure they're friends. So, you go through and you create this piece, whatever it may be. And then even when it's music, even when it's something's going to need to be edited somewhere, right? Um,
Mhm.
I have a house full of musicians. I hear that, like, actually, two of my sons are in Nashville and they do music. One's a producer, so when he's home, that's all I hear is the music and the this,
Mhm.
that, and the metronome going constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god. But but again, like that needs to be edited, just like the writing does, and all of that.
Mhm.
And how, what advice can you give to kind of switch that brains, like switch from
Mhm.
that creative to the editing? Like what can help somebody kind of make that a smooth transition that won't be overwhelming?
I feel like that's a really important aspect. So I think the number one thing that I would recommend would be to finish, the basic project. Like if it's a painting, fill out the whole canvas. It doesn't have to be perfect,
Hmm.
but if you're writing, like write the end of the book. If you have a song, write the end of the song. What you consider to be the end, just have like a starting point where like you know how you think it's going, because
Right.
that's what you want to change. If you don't know the ending of, or the complete picture of your art, then I feel like, in my opinion, it's hard to edit stuff because you don't know what else you might want to put in the other spaces, or where the story really wants to go of its own accord. You can be led into this, but having that like goal, setting that intention, having like a first draft, I think is really important. And then for editing, getting into kind of like the spirit, and like that's more like a refining thing. And there are like first coarse refinings, and then there's like the smooth ones. And I feel like the coarse refining, I always say it's like driving down on the highway like with a flat tire going 80 miles an hour, and you're just like
Yeah.
you try
You're
not to
trying
run
not to
off the
go
road.
off,
You're like,
right?
oh,
Yeah. I could
like,
do
yeah,
this.
you're turning, and it's a little bit harder because it is so rough, and that's when you could be tempted to give up. But I don't want anyone to give up at that point, because you still have to do, once you get past those rougher points, then the
Mhm.
fine tuning is so much easier, and it makes things so much better, and you will get through it. You'll get to the other side, and it'll be beautiful.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it is just like, just keep doing it,
Mm,
There's so many people that, I mean, and again, across the board with any art, they're like, oh, well, I've been working on this for 10 years and
yeah.
I haven't really gotten that far with it. And it's like, well, how far are you? Oh, I'm like 2 chapters in. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
like, you just need to do it. Like, just
Yeah.
finish it and worry about that after. I think that is so important, and I think that's a lot of where people get stuck and where that overwhelm sets in. Like, don't
Mhm.
even worry about that stuff until, like you said, you have that, like, it might be super rough. Again, it
Yeah.
might have things in it that we don't know what they even mean, but
Yeah.
it's done, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
at least that jumping point to where then you can kind of move into that. No,
Yeah.
it is. That's such great advice too. I love that.
And
Um,
also, don't be a perfectionist. Just
yes.
get it out there. It's okay.
Right, right. It
No one's
is. It's
perfect.
so important. Like, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about all this other stuff. Don't worry about if 10 pages don't make sense. Just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's our advice, everybody. Get it done.
Yes.
Just do it. And I love to hear about creating like an intention before you even start the work. Which first
Mhm.
sentence should be just get it done and then go on from there.
Yeah.
Right?
1,500 words. They don't have to be
Yeah,
great words. They don't have to be perfect.
they just need to be words.
Yeah.
But it is, and you even kind of have here, and I'll kind of show it everybody if you can't see my light, but you have it like here that you could actually take it here and even photocopy this. So you have like a whole bunch of them and
Mhm.
just kind of create your own little intention statement before you even get started. I think that's such a great idea. Like, and that kind of leads into actually even ritual if you want to
Mhm.
start to do that. So, how can people incorporate ritual into their creative art, writing, whatever it is that they're doing?
I use the same principles. I have an intention. I have a larger goal that the intention is working toward for each session. And then I use those elemental correspondences. And I don't really call in, the quarters or the directions or anything like that. I just rely upon those creative correspondences to do that work for me.
Yep.
And really, it doesn't take me very long. You can call in the creative spirit or deity if you want to, but I feel like you don't have to, that they're going
Mhm.
to just show up if you're
Right.
into the work. And I also really recommend cleansing yourself and your creative workspace. And that's another ritualistic aspect. So when you're creating, you're in like the ritual. It's like, kind of like doing divination. You just go into this other place, this trance, the state of mind, by using the music and all of those other stimulants, the creative correspondences. Frankincense, incense was really good for that, like we were
Yeah.
talking about. And then, and then you reach the end and you give thanks and you release everything. You blow out the candle, you put everything back and you say thanks to the creative spirit and goodbye. And then you ground yourself and refresh yourself with, beverage, an extra beverage if you want it, or
Right.
food if you need to.
Yeah, like, or
So
even
it's
a different beverage, right? Like, something
yeah.
different than what you're,
Oh, good. Now I can have a
yeah.
little bit of wine.
Right, exactly. See,
Yeah.
perfect. No, and I love that because it's really, I think when you're, especially if somebody who is super new to it, it's like they just sit down and like, okay, let's go. But I think going kind of through the motions, it's just kind of turning you, over into that magical creative space. And I
Mhm.
think that's a really important thing to do. And everybody, and I think some people will do that when they begin, but I think it's really important that you added too is doing it at the end. That's just
Mhm.
important too. And I think sometimes people are like, okay, I got my 1,500 words out. I'm out. Psh, done. But like you said, they didn't like blow out the candle. They didn't like kind of shut everything down, kind of alert the creative spirit, like, okay, I'm done here for today.
Mhm.
And that's important. I think that's a really important point too that you brought up, like that people don't do. And I feel like with a lot of things, even with divination and stuff, everybody's always focused on the beginning part, but they don't always focus on the end part. And like for me,
Mhm.
like I almost think that's like the most important self-care part because
Mhm.
you're just letting go and releasing, right?
Yeah, and it's easy to have a practice of gratitude and closing down. It seals those energies back into that container of like the
Hmm.
mind and the area or whatever your artistic medium is, like your paintbrushes or whatever. And then you can kind of like have a transition moment.
Right.
And the people who don't do that the most, I feel like what if we never close down our rituals? Like,
Right.
we're
Right.
just like, okay, it's like kind of been kind of intense lately.
Yeah, like what's going on here? Like I can't even like walk in my room right
Everything's, like,
now. Like what's
open, like,
happening?
the portals are open and
Like
like,
you
what's
got like
happening here?
everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know who, like, what's going on here. But it's important. And I think, again, it's that being mindful of
Mhm.
what you're doing, how you're doing it, and with purpose, and,
Mhm.
and that is, that kind of is ritual too, is doing something with purpose. And I think that's
Exactly. Yeah.
really important to add that into your creativity because when you are being creative too, you are kind of just opening yourself up because you're wanting to receive. So
Mhm.
that's, I think that's a really really important thing that a lot of people don't do, um
Yeah.
for sure.
And newer people, maybe they should cast a circle, especially if they're in a place that's public, that's not protected. Like,
Yeah.
by all means, there's nothing wrong with casting a circle. But yeah, make sure you, take it down as well.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like you can like even do that mentally, like so
Yes.
easily do it all in your head. You don't have to like get up and actually like, do
Mhm.
a salt circle or anything like that,
Yeah.
And
In a
and
startup.
honestly, you know what I've done before that it's I haven't thought of this in so long. I would go to like the coffee shop and write or whatever,
Mhm.
and I would just take like if there was like salt or whatever, I would just put a little bit on the table, like just
Mm.
pile, just a little like that. And then that would
Yeah.
be kind of what I did, like to kind
Mhm.
of like, okay, I'm busy here. Everybody just leave me alone. But yeah, there's so many simple, easy ways that you can do those things. And I
Mhm.
know you talk about a lot of them in your book as well. So now that whoever created their thing, it's all done, it's off to the printer, it's off to wherever it needs to go, then some people will just kind of roll right into the next project, right?
Yeah.
But that isn't always the greatest idea. Can you talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure. Because 'cause I've done that before, and I've
Yeah.
experienced,
Oh, yeah.
it was like, it was a lot, it was overwhelming, and I feel like I've learned that I need a period of rest between projects, big projects especially. Little ones, it's okay, I can choreograph songs and, that's pretty much, one and done kinda thing, that's
Yeah.
fine. But the big projects that take months and months and months, a lot of, like, time, energy, thought, I really need that transition time to, turn off that part of my brain and my lifestyle, and then just enjoy the other things besides create the joy of creating. Like, I need the joy of seeing more friends and traveling and seeing more of my family more
Mhm.
often and things like that. Joy of baking and cooking, I love. And like, that's one place where I used to put all my creative energy, and
Mhm.
now I do it when I'm not making something, and it's even better. Like,
Right, right, right.
because
No,
I'm
for
like, "Okay, I have a book and cookies."
exactly. I mean, it can't get
Yeah.
any better than that. No, and I know you post stuff sometimes. You posted, so I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. And it's always perfect. It's always perfect for whatever it is that you're doing. And it's funny, I think. I'm a baker too. My husband is the cook. I do the baking. But
Mhm.
it's always funny to see how to when you're done doing something and then like you say you bake cake or you bake
Mhm.
whatever, how it kind of like almost relates to whatever it is that you were doing or the comfort that you need at that moment. Like is it
Yeah.
like you said, like is it a really nice big luscious chocolate chip cookie or is it more
Mhm.
like some sort of like, I don't know, banana pudding cake or bread or something or cake or whatever. So I
Yeah.
think it's always interesting how that happens too.
Yeah, is it, like, one of your favorite recipes that you've been, like, wanting to make for a long time but just didn't have the time? Or is it something new that you're curious about and you're like, "What even is this recipe?" And you
Right,
need to, like,
right.
have that new experience and bake at the same time and have something lovely to eat and experience all the joy that comes with making it, like, it's baking is such a great side quest.
It is absolutely. I 100% agree with that because like that is definitely one of the things that I really enjoy doing and and then you get to eat it, which is even better. So that's
Right.
there too, for sure. So why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you if they'd like to know more about everything you do?
Okay, I am on Instagram as at Astrea Taylor, Threads as well, and use Facebook. I have an author page and a personal page. My website is where you can find out more about my offerings, my events, anything that's going on with me. You can sign up for my newsletter as well on my webpage. It's astreataylor.com. And yeah, I'm out and about. I have a lot of fun events planned this year. One of them is the Witch City Tarot Gathering. So,
Woo,
yes,
yes,
and I'm
yes.
looking forward to that so much.
I know, and then we get to hang out.
Yes.
I'm so excited for that. And actually, I will be chatting with Astrea again tomorrow on the Witch City channel. So if you are interested in hearing about what she's going to be talking about, because she is our keynote this year.
Mhm.
And I'm very excited about that and excited to hang out and hear what she is going to be talking about. So if you want to hear about that, you can head over there tomorrow at noon EST. But yeah, your book is, here. It's available now. So anybody, you can go ahead and grab it. And when you do, also please make sure to take a couple of minutes out and do a review. Super, super important for authors, publishers, everybody across the board. I think people don't realize like how important and how much great information you do get from them. So definitely, do a review, post it, share it, tag everybody, all the things. It's really helpful. So make sure you do that.
Yeah, it is our love language.
Yes, absolutely. And it literally takes like 5 minutes to do. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't need to be
max.
anything crazy. It really, we just love to hear about what your takeaways were. And that's
Mhm.
and that really helps. And it's great feedback too. And yeah, and I think that, like I said, everybody, it's available now. And she will be at Witch City in a couple weeks. And
Mm.
if you've not gone to it, that's in Salem, Massachusetts. Definitely head to the witchcitytarotgathering.com and you can grab tickets. Stray is going to be talking on Friday night. So there is that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the night market too.
Yes, and yes, you'll be at the night market and it's gonna be so busy. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so busy, but it's like a good busy and everybody's always so excited. So
Mhm. I
I'm
love that.
excited for you to be there because you're gonna just love it. And there's so many awesome people there too. Well,
Yeah.
everyone, thanks for hanging out with us today. And like I said, go ahead. You can get it at any of the bookstores, Amazon, all those things. So go ahead and grab it. And we thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.